Making your own quilt has never seemed so hip, and we've got an easy technique for you that will have that quilt coming together in no time at all.
That's right. It involves a little bit of rotary cutting, some glue, and a sewing machine, and we think you're going to love it. I'm Kim.
And I'm Chris, and you're watching The DIY Dish. Welcome back everyone to another episode of The DIY Dish. We'd first like to thank Joanne Fabric and Craft Stores who have made this episode possible. Now you know, with new fabric lines coming in all the time from the latest designers, it really has brought a fresh and new and fun look to quilting once more.
And we're excited to share with you this quilting project today, but first, Chris, I have to say something before we move on. I just had to laugh when I looked at, I had to laugh when I looked at this quilt because I just am wondering, do you match every outfit to your quilts? I mean, this is like a perfect match. The burgundy, the gray, the cream.
Wasn't planning on that, but sure, of course I do, don't you?
I just think that was funny. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move along with the episode, but I looked at that one. Okay, so for the beginning seamstress, this quilting comeback has been very welcomed. And for those of you who have quilted for many years and the tradition has been passed on to you, then you will also recognize the comfort and pure enjoyment that can come from creating a quilt of your very own.
So we decided it would be fun today to show you a very simple, straightforward quilt that will look amazing in any fabric combination. And the best part is that all of the quilting is done at once, so that when you're finished with the top, you're really finished
with the quilt.
Yep, you're finished with the entire quilt.
We love that. And while this is a quilt that can be made in any size, for our demo today, we're actually going to begin with a more child-sized quilt. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's what you're going to need. You're going to need 2 1-yard cuts of solid white flannel for this particular quilt, a 3.5 inch by 45 inch strip of 5 different flannels, 1 yard of batting, a fabric glue stick, and a sewing machine.
All right, so you ready to get started? Yeah. Okay, so here I've chosen my 5 pieces of flannel. Okay, 5 different ones that all coordinate together.
Of course, you could use cotton or flannel or decorator fabric, really.
Yep, this could be made in any kind of fabric you choose.
All right.
So you'll notice that I took these and I actually cut them into 3.5 by the width of the fabric, which is more oftentimes than not 45 inches. Okay. So once you've done that with all of your fabric strips, then you're going to take it to your cutting mat and actually cut them once more. Because this time you're going to cut them 3.5 inches the other way, so that, whoops, there we go, it's at a kind of an odd angle here. Scoot over it. There we go. Well,
maybe you need a new rotary cutter. Look at that.
There we go. Have you ever tried cutting at that kind of angle? It doesn't work too well.
No. Okay,
oh, well.
Keep on going.
Okay, so anyway, you have these 3.5 by 3.5 inch squares. Okay. So once you've done that with all of your pieces of fabric, you'll have a stack of fabrics like this.
Okay.
Okay, there's actually 50 squares you'll end up having. Now, let's set those aside, and now you're going to take your 1 yard piece of white flannel, just one of them, and you're actually going to square it up so that it's 36 inches square.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll have to end up cutting off a little bit of your width. So you have 36 inches square. Now actually I'm going to turn this over here to one side so I can show you how to trace this grid. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to actually form a grid, about a 4-inch grid by 4 inch.
Okay.
So the easiest way to do that is to take your ruler and to line up right against the edge here to your 4.5 inch mark.
4.5 inches?
Yes, 4.5 inches. Okay.
So if you wanted larger squares, you would just do an inch larger than your square.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes. So this really could be made in any grid you'd like.
Okay.
And I'm taking my water-soluble pen here, or if you have some kind of tracing pencil, you can do that. And if you can see here closely, I have now marked one line. I continue to follow that line every 4.5 inches. Okay, and sometimes it takes just a little moving around just to get it right. And I'm going to go ahead and trace once again. And I continue that same pattern all the way across to the other side.
Okay.
Now once I'm finished with that, I'll do the same going the opposite direction.
Sure. Yeah.
So that I then end up forming this grid.
Okay.
So let's take a look here. I've already done it on this reverse side. Although when you do it, you only have to do it one time. Okay. But this is where I could show you that each of this is 4.5 inches. Now, at this time, you're going to take your glue stick, and this is just a fabric glue stick I've got on hand. And with a little dab of glue, I'm going to start playing and putting those right in there.
So you only put that glue in the middle, not around the outside edge?
No, I'm not wanting to do it there. You know, I don't want you to think about it too much as you're placing it. You just want to make
right
sure.
In the center.
And you want to make sure that you don't have, you know, the same fabric up against each other. You have, you know, varying fabrics all throughout.
Okay.
Okay, so you'll just continue doing this in a pattern, but really it doesn't have to be the same exact pattern all the way across. Just make sure you fill in all of that grid, leaving the outside edge open. Okay. So once you've done that with all of your squares, it's going to look like this. We've already got that laid out for you. Okay, notice how all of my squares around the borders are empty and everything in the middle is filled in. Now, what you'll do next is actually take your second yard of fabric that you had cut out earlier, the 1 yard piece of white flannel, and you're going to put that on the back and then sandwich in between with a thin batting.
Okay.
Okay. Now, in order to keep these layers all together, what I like to use is some kind of basting spray.
Sure.
That's going to really help keep those layers together, because now you're going to take it to your sewing machine. When you take it to your sewing machine, you'll start on one end and you'll actually use the edge of your square. Here, let me show you here. You'll actually use the edge of your square to have your presser foot align against it.
Okay.
And that's going to keep you nice and straight, and you're going to sew all the way down one side. Again, sewing all the way down this side, sewing down all the way to the other side. Once you've done that vertically, you're going to go back down and go the other direction horizontally.
Okay.
So Kim, why don't you go ahead and
I'm excited to try this. Yeah.
Because you're actually leaving the raw edges to fray.
Okay. I love the fact that this is going to be done and quilted by the time I'm finished with this.
That's right. Now, preferably, if you have a walking foot for your sewing machine, that's really going to help. Exactly. It's going to help guide those layers through. However, if you don't have a walking foot, you can still do this.
Sure. It's really thin.
It is very thin, and my advice would be to lengthen your stitch and definitely go slow.
Okay. So do I want a back stitch at the beginning?
Yes, you'll want to give a little bit of a back stitch.
All right. Okay.
And you continue moving forward and don't stop.
Across.
Yep.
Okay.
And then sew all the way across.
Is it better to have a thread color that's the same or a contrast, or what do you think?
It really doesn't matter. I like to have a contrast just because I like seeing it show up. But if you'd rather not see it show up, use something a little bit more close to the fabric color of your choosing.
Okay. I love this. Okay. Very easy.
See how quickly that comes together?
Yeah.
So you would continue the same process all the way across, and again the other direction. And when you're finished, you're ready to now bind and be done.
Here it's on the back.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Make sure and erase your grid lines, however your water-soluble pencil or pen works.
Okay.
And you won't have those edges anymore, and you'll have a nice, clean, white frame around each of those blocks.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of the other finished photos that you put together using the same method.
You could do these as baby quilts that are very easy to do, child-size quilts. throws. It's really a fun thing to do. And you could do it with all different shapes as well. It doesn't just have to be
I can
squares.
picture like circles being all over a
Yes.
white flannel sheet or a white flannel fabric.
When you're finished with the quilt, make sure you throw it in the wash and dryer and allow those edges to fray. It's a really fun look.
Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get started on it tonight. To close, we want to thank Joann Fabric and Craft Stores for sponsoring this episode of the DIY Dish and making it possible. Go ahead and run on in there or visit them online to gather up everything you need to start one of these quilts today.
And you know, this idea can really be done in so many ways. Again, change up those squares to be different shapes, circles, flowers, as we mentioned in those photos before, and put your own creative spin on it and see what happens. We'd love to see the results.
Of course.
You can post your photos on our Facebook page or Flickr group, or even come visit us at thediydish.com.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you felt creativity was served. Bye-bye.
Bye.